friends. Welcome again to another episode of the Intentional Living with Emlah podcast. And today I am honored to welcome my beautiful and intelligent friend, Lara Zakaria, to the podcast. Thank you for coming on, Lara.
Thank you, Dr. Emlah. It's so nice to be here, and thanks for having me. And we have such a juicy conversation planned today.
It's gonna be so wonderful. But here is what I want to give me a moment. Let me introduce Dr. Zakaria to my audience here because she is an integrative pharmacist. And, most of us go to pharmacy school, we get our doctor of pharmacy and we stop there. But here's what Lara did, okay? She says the doctor of pharmacy is not enough for her because she wants to be able to layer her pharmacology with additional things that will help us in our lifestyle because we know that there is more to health than prescriptions. So she goes on to get a master's in nutrition. She goes on to get a master's in public health. So as an integrative pharmacist, a nutritionist, and she teaches at the College of Pharmacy. She's a professor, public health professional, and certified in functional medicine. What better person to talk about protein and integrative medicine than Lara? Like Dr. Zakaria, I'm happy to have you on the phone on the podcast today.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And thanks for the kind introduction.
Well, the kind introduction is a real introduction because that's how I introduce my friends. It is you and I I'm like, I want people to be a fly on the wall in our conversations. When we sit down to talk, it's like an hour or two of deep dive into integrative medicine, lifestyle medicine. But today, if you have ever wondered, if you are one of those people who has said, do I need to quit my job in order to get my recommended protein for the day? This podcast is for you. This episode is for you because if you're wondering, oh my gosh, how am I going to get, everybody's talking about protein. Everybody's talking about how much protein I should get, lean protein, plant protein, animal protein. We're going to allow Lara to break that down for us today. And I'm just going to start with the first question. Before we dive into protein, when I talk about intentional living, what does intentional living mean to you, my dear friend?
I think intentional living is about being so mindful of how you spend your moments that you are not wasting any time on any negative energy, that you are not wasting your time giving to people who are energy vampires, that you are nourishing your body so that you could be the most present, beautiful, patient version of yourself that you can be to the people that matter in your life, to your loved ones, to your friends, to your colleagues, and to your community.
Thank you. She said so mindful, so present to the best. I love that. And that to me is truly intentional living for yourself and for the people around you. So let's switch gears and we talk about the pillars of intentional living and we talk about nutrition being the first pillar, nutrition, movement. But let's hold on right there on nutrition because all four pillars, nutrition, movement, inner alignment, and positive social connections. But today we're going to take a deep dive on nutrition and we're going to get stuck on protein because the world is stuck on protein. Why is protein so important?
Why is the protein so important? I think rightfully so. I'm gonna get a little philosophical here.
Yes.
So get, bear with me, walk with me here. Protein is obviously an essential nutrient. We have to eat it. We have to get it from our diet. It's part of our macronutrients. So when we think of, let's actually back up a little bit. Let's just do a quick little nutrition 101, just so that we're all on the same page and we're all using the right vocabulary.
Mhm.
Okay. So first of all, we have our macronutrients, your proteins, your carbs, your fats. When we say calories, what we're doing is we're calculating the energy from macronutrients, and that's it, right? That is like the bottom base of nutrition education. And for a long time, that's what we focused on when we talked about nutrition. We would talk about calories. I remember growing up in like the fat phobia of the 90s, and all we did was talk about how many calories and how many calories from fat were and how bad they were for you and how that was going to make you fat, right? But that's not the only part of nutrition. Then we have micronutrients. Those are your vitamins, your minerals, your vitamin C, your B vitamins, your magnesium, your vitamin D, zinc, copper, all of these vitamins and minerals. There's dozens of them. Some of them have roles in our body where they help us use other nutrients. For example, we use certain vitamins and minerals to help us utilize our proteins. We use certain vitamins and minerals to help us make the energy in our body so it could go do important things like making sure your heart beats, making sure your brain works, making sure you're breathing. Like all of these basic functions, essentially, these are like the helpers. Like they sit and they kind of just do the job. They're like sitting at their factory and they're just pumping out all these really important hormones and neurotransmitters and chemicals and helping our body make energy, right? Some of them are also antioxidants, like selenium, low key, is an antioxidant on its own, just sits there and squashes oxidative fires, right? And so it helps put out those fires and helps us make stuff like glutathione, for example. Some of it is essential for us making like hormones like our thyroid hormone. We need like iron and zinc, for example, to make thyroid. So they are really, really critical. We call them micronutrients, but that's not because they're not important. It's because they're tiny compared to macronutrients, like literally in size. The little compounds are tiny.
I love that.
Then, as if that wasn't all enough, we also have phytonutrients, and phytonutrients are kind of like the new kid on the block. We are still figuring out what these phytonutrients do. What we do know is that they give color to all the plant foods that we eat. So the reason something is red or green or purple or black has to do with what kind of phytonutrient or phytochemicals are in the food. And these phyto compounds, we think there might be a few thousand of them. Like we've identified about 10 or 15,000 of them. We think there might be like 30,000 of them. And some scientists think that there's like way more, that we're super underestimating how many compounds they are. So when you hear words like resveratrol or curcumin comes from turmeric, for example, or you hear polyphenols. These are all under this umbrella of phytonutrients. And phytonutrients are extra super cool because they act also as antioxidants. They also put out that oxidative fire, but they also act in combination with our microbiome, the good bacteria that we have in our body. And they actually they like have little conversations, like literally have little conversations that then activate our DNA. That's part of what we call epigenetics, is basically the conversation between these phytonutrients. They tell our microbiome what's up, what's happening, and then our microbiome goes and tells our DNA what to do. It's a big part when we talk about food as medicine. It's a big part of what helps us thrive, because with the right combination of these phytonutrients, you basically program your DNA to help you heal, to help you thrive. With the wrong or the absence of these phytochemicals or phytonutrients, then you are turning on you're increasing the risk of disease because you're turning on the genetic risk factors for disease. It is probably one of the most powerful ways that we can manage our health. So having all of that in place, there are two concepts I want to tease today. We're going to focus on protein, like you said, Dr. Emlah, but what we're going to talk about next time, we have to come back and talk about fiber and phytonutrients and the rainbow and why that pairs so beautifully with protein. It's like
Dr.
peanut butter
Lara,
and jelly.
I want to pause you there. I don't think phytonutrients and fiber will go in the same episode. I'm going to say we'll have to do a total episode on phytonutrients because I'm in love with phytonutrients, not just because they're bright and colorful and their antioxidant ability, but we're going to have to keep them special and stack them on top of fiber. What do you say?
I'm down for that. Listen, I can talk about it all day.
So we're in class. We're in class. We're in Nutrition 101 right now. Come with me as Dr. Lara tells us. She's already told us that a protein is a macronutrient. And so we are focusing, and she has explained very beautifully the difference between macronutrients and micronutrients. And now we're going to hone in on this macronutrient protein. How much protein should Emlah be getting on a daily basis?
So that is going to be different. I love that you said how much protein should Emlah be getting, because it's different from person to person. There is a calculation that we use, body weight, to determine your protein need, and that's an okay start. A lot of the recommendations for our protein need, we are now revisiting and we think might be lowballing how much protein we actually need. So that's why you keep hearing protein keep coming up on your feed, and why all of a sudden people are telling you to eat more protein, because we think we might have been telling, especially women, to undereat protein. So the current recommendation is 0.8 grams per kilogram, and we think it might be closer to 1. And that might even be higher if you're somebody who's a bodybuilder or somebody who is actively trying to gain muscle. We might need to go higher. Now, that means if you don't want to do math, I'm not going to make y'all do math. It's okay. And I'm not going to ask Emlah how much she weighs. I would never. But what that means is that the average, if I'm going to say like an average person's about 150 pounds, then the average person probably needs about 75 grams of protein at bare minimum, at absolute bare minimum, probably closer to 90. And actually to thrive and to build muscle, because we're always trying to build muscle,
Yes, ma'am.
probably closer to 100 to 120. Okay. However, asterisk, I find a couple of things get in the way. Number one, I have a job. Most of you have jobs, have kids, have a life. You don't have time to sit there and just be eating protein all day.
Yeah, that is
It's a lot of
the
protein.
common joke at the pharmacy. Everybody's like, we're gonna have to quit all our jobs and so that we can be able to just get the right amount of protein, because Dr. Lara says we
It's
need this
insane.
amount of protein in one day.
Think about it like a chicken breast, just for context for people. A chicken breast is 30 grams of protein. That means you have to have like 3 to 4 chicken breasts a day. That's a lot of chicken.
That's a lot of chicken.
That's a lot of
That's
chicken.
a lot of chicken,
right?
Let's go on that. So with that number in mind, animal protein versus plant protein. Talk to me about that. What are the differences? What should I take into
That's
consideration?
actually that's one of the challenges, actually. So let me preface it by saying that when we're talking about animal versus plant protein is considered easier to digest but lower quality than animal protein. That's because the amount of amino acids, the building blocks that make up protein, are more robust in animal protein than they are in plant protein. Plants also, it's a catch-22. They're full of fiber and phytonutrients, right? That's fantastic. We love that. But fiber and phytonutrients also make them tough to digest for certain guts. So they might also interfere with the absorption of some of those proteins, right? So in terms of quality, animal protein is technically better. When we're talking about plant protein goals, we don't need you to just get animal protein. We need you to get a combination of both, but it could be challenging to get enough protein from plants, because by the time you hit 10 grams of protein from, let's say, legumes or whole grains or nuts or seeds, you're so full from the fiber, you're not going to be able to eat more. So there's a cap.
Sitting here listening to you and just thinking of all my vegetarian and vegan friends listening, and they're saying, Dr. Lara, this is a setup. So what am I going to put on my plate to get me to my recommended daily my requirement for protein for the day, and that I'm going to be able to digest? I'm going to be able to feel full without stacking overload on the fiber. What should I be putting on my plate?
Favorite. So I don't love processed fake meat. For me, that's way too much stuff that's in there that's not real. I totally respect somebody who wants to be vegan or vegetarian because of philosophical or religious reasons, and I want to support you in that. But the alternative meats are not necessarily the healthiest options. They are a pretty good source of protein. So if you're just going to aim for the protein, that is an option. I prefer, however, soy and particularly tofu, because the making of the tofu makes it also more digestible.
Okay.
So you're getting a really good protein source from soy to begin with, and you're making it fermented, which is really good for our digestion and our gut health. So those are really two good solid strategies for getting in more plant protein from food. I find, however, most vegans and vegetarians to hit their protein goals do need to supplement with a vegan protein, so like a powder and some sort of supplement or a smoothie or something in order to get to that, along with other micronutrients like B12 in particular. Some also need to keep an eye on their iron because they may not be fully absorbing iron from their diet. And so they're at higher risk of iron deficiency, zinc deficiency, and some other micronutrient deficiencies. So when you are trying to optimize your health as a vegetarian, there's just a few other check boxes that you need to fill out so that we can make sure that we get there. Now, that said, this brings me to digestion. Some people, because of their low digestive fire, what do I mean by that? You feel like you can't fully digest something. Like you eat chicken or you eat protein and it just sits in your stomach. It won't move. And like 2 hours later, you still feel really full. So what
Okay.
do? Like a normal person, you avoid it because it doesn't feel good when you eat it because you're listening to your body and you're intuitive, right? But that's usually a sign that your digestive fire, your ability to break down your food, is actually been compromised. And that's actually something that we can fix and work on. But the problem there is, even if you're eating protein and you're eating sufficient protein, if your digestion function isn't optimized, then you're probably not fully absorbing and breaking down that protein. And so you're kind of eating it, but it's not really fully entering your system. It's not being made what we call bioavailable or available for your body to use. So for a lot of us to even get past that 70, 80, 90 gram per day mark means that we have to actually think about where our digestive function lies, and we have to actually tune that up first, or else it's going to be, even if you could stomach that much protein, you're not going to fully absorb that protein.
What are some practical and easy ways to tune up that digestive fire?
You're not going to like the first one I'm going to say.
Let's hear it. I'm ready.
Are you ready?
I am.
You have to relax.
Oh.
You have to stop multitasking.
Oh.
You have to
Really?
chew your food.
Oh.
People really don't like it when I say that. You have to be more intentional when you're eating, and you have to really start supporting and loving on your vagus nerve, that connection between your gut and your brain. I cannot overemphasize how important cultivating that gut brain connection and cultivating a space where you're eating and you're relaxed and you're fully engaged in what you're eating, how much that has an effect on your digestion.
This podcast is sponsored by Journeys, your path to intentional wellness. Most health problems don't start overnight, and neither does wellness. With Journeys, you can take charge of your health before you have to. Every cell in your body is speaking to you. But when we ignore preventive medicine, we wait until those cells are screaming. Journeys helps you listen to the whispers. There are 3 different journeys to choose from, each designed to meet you where you are in your wellness path. The Core Wellness Journey for $199 offers a foundational look at your overall health, perfect for getting started and measuring 66 biomarkers. The Advanced Heart and Metabolic Health Journey for $339 measures 111 biomarkers and goes deeper into cardiovascular, metabolic, and thyroid health for a more detailed picture. The Comprehensive Longevity and Hormone Journey costs $469 and is the most complete view, including hormone, nutrient markers that support energy, balance, and healthy aging. This measures 120 biomarkers. Each journey includes a personalized recommendation, one-on-one care from your pharmacist, and follow-up support to help you turn results into lasting intentional change. You just won't get data. You'll get guidance, accountability, and a partner in your wellness journey. Intentional living means paying attention, staying curious, and taking steps towards the health you deserve. Start your journeys today. Click the link in the show notes. I feel attacked. because you started with this and you know that as I pick up Timsha from school and I'm hurrying to go to his soccer practice and I'm eating in the car going. So this is why you said I'm not gonna like it. I feel the
I did warn you. I said you're not going to like it because I also know you're a pharmacist and we are the kings and queens of multitasking while we eat.
Yeah. The pharmacist is just there, run to the back, eat a little thing. If they can run to the back and everybody at
run to the back. You get to run to the back.
I'm thinking luxury here, okay? So if I heard you, I'm gonna go back one step. If I heard you right, I said, Dr. Lara said, here's the thing. If you're a vegetarian listening to us right now, it will be a good time for you to test your B12 levels, your ferritin levels, just making sure that you are getting enough B12 because most vegetarians, almost every vegetarian would need to supplement with B12. We will put a link in the show notes to the Emlah Naturals B12 and also a link to Journeys so that you could test, so that we're not guessing, so that we can be able to light up those digestive fires. And also a link to our plant-based protein. So our rice and pea Inflamma Restore, which does have turmeric in it and 22 grams of protein. So we should be getting towards that goal that Dr. Lara is telling us about. So, and, discuss these plant proteins in detail and talked about tofu, talked about lentils and chickpeas. These are the things that we're throwing on our plate if we want this plant protein, but we know that comes with fiber, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but may not help us hit our goals like she explained earlier. So she mentioned animal proteins. I'm going to bring her back to it because every time we're talking about animal proteins, there's this little fear in the back like, oh my gosh, that's going to raise my cholesterol levels. My lipid panel, I want my lipid panel looking nice and beautiful, but I need this animal protein because Dr. Lara said it is pure, it is easier form for the body. So what do you have to tell me about that? On this animal protein topic.
Can I get on my soapbox about eggs? Is this a safe space?
Because this is a safe space, and let's get ready to hear.
Eggs have been so villainized, okay? I don't think that there is a food that has been made to feel so bad about itself than the poor little egg, okay?
Aww.
First of all, great protein source, depending on the size of the egg, 5 to 7 grams of protein per egg, okay? And that's in the egg white, all right? That's great. But the yolk, do you know how nutrient dense that yolk is? It is full of those micronutrients. It's full of antioxidants. It's full of zeaxanthin and lutein, these beta carotene vitamin A derivatives that are powerful antioxidants, right? And it is an amazing source of carnitine, which is so hard to get from food. It is so hard to get from food. It even has vitamin D. Do you know how hard it is to eat vitamin D?
Almost impossible.
Do you know how hard it is to eat
mushrooms?
It's impossible. It's impossible. And mushrooms, by the way, is D2, right?
Yeah.
And your body still has to convert it. So it's a suboptimal form of vitamin D. No shade to mushrooms. They're amazing for a variety of reasons. However,
pun intended,
if we're going to compare, right? Vitamin D2 in mushrooms versus a D3 in egg. And to be fair, salmon and fish also have some vitamin D. Come on. This is nature's perfect food. Okay?
Ooh, do you see why I love Dr. Lara? I feel like this is an ad for eggs right now. Let's figure it out.
Wait a second. Wait, I have not been paid by Big Egg. I promise you. I am not being paid. I'm not.
This is
not
important.
A sponsor, although I'd be open to it. I would 100% wear that mantle with pride if anybody from Big Egg is listening right now. But I'm not even done with my rant.
Let's go.
Okay?
Let's keep going.
And then what did we say? Oh, you eat eggs, your cholesterol is going to go up. Oh, you eat eggs, you're going to develop heart disease. So what do people do? They crack the egg, they split the white from the yolk.
Yes.
And then throw away the yolk. The most nourishing substance. And then make an egg white omelet with no fat. And to be fair, that is a great source of protein still.
Yes.
That's fine.
Remind us about how many grams of protein from the egg white?
5 to 7 grams of protein, depending on the size of the egg. So if you're getting larger jumbo, that's
Mm-hmm.
closer to 7, maybe
Okay.
even 8 for the really big ones,
Yes.
and on average about 5 or 6 for most medium-sized eggs.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay? So you're having an omelet maybe with 2 or 3 eggs.
Yes.
Man, that's like 15 grams of protein right there if you add 3 eggs, right? Like,
Yes.
that's pretty darn
It's
good, right?
decent.
That's
Yeah.
pretty darn
Mm-hmm.
good. You throw in some cheese in there, that's another few grams of protein. So you've just gone into your double digits of protein already. You're hitting 20 easily with just that easy hack right there, right? Very quick, very easy to do. You can hard boil them and they become transportable. You could throw them into a salad, you can mix them into things. I mean, there are just so many ways to utilize eggs to increase protein and take advantage of those added nutrients,
Yes.
right? But here's the thing. Um, this starts back in the 60s. We decided that fat caused heart disease and especially cholesterol. If you ate it, increase your cholesterol. We found out years later that that was untrue. There's a deeper, like, if if anybody's ever interested in the hot tea on this one, but there's like a deeper scandal in terms of how data was cherry picked to arrive at that
Mm-hmm.
conclusion. It's a fascinating story, but I'll try to stay on track. But we found out that it's actually untrue. Eating cholesterol does not impact cholesterol levels unless you have a genetic variant that makes you over absorb cholesterol. So in those cases, in that smaller, unique population, that might be true. But we make cholesterol, and cholesterol is made in our liver in response to environmental
That's what. Mm-hmm.
pressures. So that be, yes, diet to an extent, but not necessarily the inclusion of cholesterol, but rather how many antioxidants you eat, how well you nourish your liver, how well you're supporting detoxification, and how well you're balancing your blood sugar. That's a major, major factor in terms of cholesterol. And number two, if you have any damage to your arteries, your body's actually making those cholesterol molecules in a way to try
Rescue.
to fix it. It's
Mm.
kind of like what is it?
Yes.
Spackling, like spackling
Yes.
your wall when there's a hole in
Mm-hmm.
it. That's basically what your body's using that cholesterol to do. So when there's a lot of inflammation and when there is more damage in the body and there's more oxidative stress, that oxidative fire, guess what? Your cholesterol goes up in response. And ironically, the inclusion of foods like eggs are high in these antioxidants and high in these compounds actually is protective, not only for the heart, but for the brain. At very minimum, some of the studies are still trying to evaluate the impact of eggs. There's no target for eggs. We're starting to see the idea of only having 1 or 2 eggs a week as a recommendation starting to shift. There's more and more health experts saying it's totally safe to have 1 or 2 eggs a day, and that should not impact your health. And some of the larger studies are now saying that at minimum, there is no negative impact from the inclusion of eggs. There might actually be a protective impact from eating more eggs for both your heart and your brain. And so if cognitive decline or dementia is something that you worry about, then I encourage you to start including more eggs in your diet. And when we're combining protein and we're talking about all of these other antioxidants and the power of fiber and the power of color and phytonutrients, then I encourage you to also consider making eggs part of that goal because it truly has a lot of those antioxidants and those nutrients that can help power both your heart and your brain.
I'm sold. So I'm making some omelets right after this podcast. And so we will increase those wonderful nutrients, zeaxanthin, lutein for my eyes, for my brain health, and get my protein while I'm at it. And so, but not to forget our lean proteins as well, our turkey and chicken and our fish.
Yes. And look, some people, if you enjoy things like red meat, like beef and lamb and all of that, I still think that there's a place to include those. Some of the larger studies that look at population health that said that eating a lot of meat was potentially harmful, increased the risk of things like diabetes,
Mm-hmm.
heart disease, and cancer. Um, Often did not include anything about whether or not they also included adequate amounts of fiber and
Mm.
phytonutrients and antioxidants. Some of the smaller studies that look at people a little bit more closely that said, okay, folks that eat meat, but also included healthy amounts of these fibers and plant foods, seem to actually have a protective benefit. So if you're eating, for example, a burger at a barbecue, and then you're having next to it a plate of broccoli, or you're eating your coleslaw and you're having that cabbage next to it, there is potentially a protective effect. So now the amount of meat that your body likes to handle is going to be different from person to person. Red meat tends to be harder to digest for some people than lean proteins, and the amount of calories that you're going to get. So if you're looking to cut calories or to lean out, then yes, going with the lean animal protein might be a better option for you. But I think as we learn more and we start to destigmatize the impact of saturated fat and cholesterol on our diet, I think we'll also see that there is room for us to increase our consumption of those animal proteins as well. But we have to talk about fish.
Let's talk about fish. There's a lot more we could
That's
talk about, but we don't want to minimize fish. We want to prioritize fish.
no.
Let's go.
We have to talk about fish
Yes.
because I think one of the things I've noticed, obviously I'm based in the US,
Yes.
and a lot of patients that I talk to do not love fish. It's like not their favorite food. And, I think fish is also tricky to cook. It takes a little bit more patience. It takes a little bit more cooking skills to make. And it can be more expensive depending where you live. You live in the middle of the country where you don't have a lot of access to water. That means the fish usually has to come to you versus maybe if you live on the coast or you live somewhere where you're more access to fish, it might be a little bit more accessible for you financially. So there's a lot of variables to it, but hands down, I always joke that there's like two things that we agree on in nutrition, and one of them is that fish ultimately is good for you. Now, we might disagree on the kind of fish, the quantity of fish you should be consuming. We'll continue to argue about that, but we all know the studies are pretty consistent in populations and in cultures where fish is included. That includes in Asian countries and Mediterranean countries. The specific kinds of fat and the quality of the protein that's in the fish, along with all the other benefits that come, all those micronutrients are in there as well. That all helps to protect us from chronic disease. It's part of the reason that we say that folks that live in, for example, Japan or Korea, live longer, healthier lives. It's part of the reason we talk so much about the Mediterranean diet.
Yes.
It's the inclusion of fish in our diet. Now, there's some caveats, and I don't know if we want to get into them today about, things like heavy metals or contaminants and pollutants that are a result of what kind of water they swim in. There's farmed fish versus wild caught fish. There's a lot that we can kind of dive into there if you want. But ultimately, that's not about the fish itself. It's about the environment that the fish is raised in and comes from, which is
Mhm.
true of any
Yeah.
food.
It's I love that we have touched all the parts of the animal protein and we've touched all the parts of the plant protein. But I'm looking at it, I'm taking it one step back and saying if somebody's
Mm,
listening to us today and says, "Oh my gosh, Dr. Lara, you have told me all these wonderful things about protein. What is an intentional initiative? What can I start doing today to start incorporating more protein into my diet and feeling less guilty about the protein stories?"
okay. So, first off, I have to say this. It is, I think, very important. I think your audience in particular will appreciate this. For so long, I'm going to speak to my girlies for a second,
Yes.
right? Because I think
Great.
men have always been told to eat protein. There's almost a social stigma
Mm,
against plants. So I'll talk to them the next time when we're talking more about plants and phytonutrients.
yes.
But for my girlies, for so long, we have been told that we need to be lean, that
Mhm.
we need to take up less space, and that if we do exercise, need to do exercise that keeps us small and that keeps us delicate and keeps us graceful, right? And for so much of, I think, our cultural, exposure, the idea was, do cardio, do running, sweat more, lean out. I don't want to get bulky if I lift weights. I don't want to, I don't want to get bigger. I want to be petite. I want to fit in smaller clothes. And I'm not here to tell anybody how they feel in their body. It's your body. You get to feel good in whatever size, shape body you live in. That is not my business. Okay. But I will say that what we know is that muscle, first of all, is very sexy. I love muscle. Muscle on men, muscle on women. It's powerful, it's strong, but it's also protective.
Yes.
It makes sure that we protect our heart. It improves our insulin sensitivity, meaning that it protects us from diabetes. It also protects our brain and our bone, not just as we age, but right now. Your cognition is better now. Your attention is better now. Your focus is better now. Your skin elasticity might improve when you increase your muscle tone because you're stimulating more collagen production. So you are just glowing from the inside out, and you are protecting yourself now and your future body. When you're 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years old, you're going to be able to reach for the top shelf with no problem. You're going to be able to open jars without a problem. You're going to be able to play with your grandkids without a problem. Play with your dog, take your dog on a walk, travel the world when you have time, right? That is why I'm such a big advocate for us building muscle, and in turn, why I'm such a big advocate of protein. Because without the protein, you can't have the muscle hypertrophy. And until we unshackle ourselves from this idea that we need to be tiny and petite, and we start lifting heavier weights, building more muscle and bone density, we're going to keep in this loop. So I want you to think about that. Whoever's listening to this, I hope that resonated for you. But this is why we need to be aiming for more protein. This is why this conversation for protein is so important. Because if you really want to live intentionally and you want to live intentionally for a long time, this is a really important thing to think about, to internalize, and hopefully to live out with intention.
You know, if I was, what I want to do is I just want to listen to you say that one part again. It resonates with me so much. Muscle is an endocrine organ. Muscle is the currency for the future. If you did not hear Dr. Lara say it, this is what we need for our future. As you're putting money into your 401k, that's how you should be building your muscle with that protein so that for longevity, that's how we're looking at it, just so that we can have the body to enjoy that money we're saving for retirement with. And this is why protein, I was hoping to have this episode be like 20 minutes, but it's almost impossible to talk about protein in 20 minutes. So
Well, it's because I needed to make sure that you understood why we're
basics.
focusing on protein.
The basic,
right?
Yes. So that way because I feel like anybody who has listened to this podcast today has understood the basics, the macronutrients, plant protein, animal protein. Why is it that it's necessary? It's connection with muscle, it's metabolic connection. And about eggs, I love that you talked about eggs, broke down the yolk and all the nutrients that are in the yolk and how they help with our eyes, they help with our cognition, and the protein, and not demonizing eggs as we have always. And then you address the vegetarians and the vegans in the room. Thank you very much for all this information about proteins. Like, I cannot thank you enough, Dr. Lara. This is why I'm just happy to bring you and the knowledge, like just to get an insight into your brain so that my audience can know what I am exposed to as I have you as a friend. We talk a lot, we work a lot together, we're at conferences together teaching, and the summer we'll be in a conference teaching about 2 or 3 sessions together, and I'm very excited about that. And I want to encourage you listening today, if you've learned 1 or 2 things from this podcast, share it with a friend and somebody who will benefit from muscle, and that is everybody. Man or woman, child will all benefit from building muscle, and it is the currency for the future, and we need protein. We cannot do without protein. You heard her. You heard Dr. Lara. It's an essential macronutrient, and she explained that in the beginning. So to live with intention, we need to continue to do this. I will put a link in the show notes to connect with Dr. Lara. She writes these beautiful blogs, and I read them all the time, very colorful and very down to earth. With all her degrees, she breaks it down in such a way that we can understand and actually know what practical steps to take to be able to live with intent, to live our lives with intention. So share this podcast with people on the Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube. And before we go, one last nugget that you can give our audience on this protein topic.
One last nugget.
Yes. one intentional initiative on figuring out ways to put more protein on our plate and just to be able to hit that protein goal you told us about at the beginning of the podcast?
Start by paying attention. I think for a lot of people, we underestimate or overestimate how much we're eating. So start by just paying attention and maybe spend a week just looking at, calculating, and keeping track of how much protein you're actually getting in. So before you start going for more, check in. Maybe what you're eating right now is you're hitting it. Maybe you'll notice it's under. Maybe it'll allow you to think a little bit more deliberately about what it takes for you to eat more. But whatever it is, just kind of sit with it, pay attention, and ask questions about what it would take for you to increase that goal. And of course, are you willing to also do that added work of walking more, sitting and getting distractions out of the way when you eat that protein? Are you willing to lift more weights or lift heavier weights? What does it mean for you to intentionally raise your protein? We're not just going to do it because it's a fad and somebody on Instagram or on YouTube in this case said so. We're going to do it because it aligns with where we're at in our journey.
I love that. It aligns with where we're at on our journey. And this is intentional living for me. And the world needs more women like Dr. Lara, who will remind us how much protein we need and that I need to lift heavier weights and the reason why that is important for me. And I love that. So, and I love reading your post on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, she is literally her Dr. Lara Zakaria. And on Instagram, you are the foodie pharmacist.
That's right.
I love that name. I love that name. So we'll have a link on that in the show notes. And I am grateful that you're here with us today. And please, a gift that Dr. Lara and I would appreciate will be sharing this beautiful information with the people that matter to you in your life, the positive social connections, and continue to live each day with intention. Be kind to your bodies.